so moving on to video number 2. So I hope you enjoyed my quick review of some of his other favourite recipes that I want to try soon from my other booklet. I love that series, I collect them. There's loads and loads of those books, by the way, and they're dead cheap. I think they only cost about $2.50 or something. They're just very, very good and really easy recipes, and the pictures are just eye candy. I love them. And they're just, because they're so small and dinky little books, they're very easy to store as well. And they're proper retro and vintage. So what's else been going on in my life? So I've also been attending an OCD Zoom group, which is Experts by Experience OCD group, reviewing research into OCD, including some research that's coming up looking at whether or not intensive group therapy is more it's more efficacious. It's more effective. That's the word. Yeah, it's more effective at helping people with OCD through exposure and response prevention than, say, the same group therapy spreads. So you get 10 sessions, but they're looking at whether or not, if it's more effective to have those sessions more condensed, closer together and over a shorter period of time, so that there aren't so many gaps between sessions, and whether that's more effective than having those 10 group therapy sessions spread out over 10 weeks. So that's the research that we're going to sort of be reviewing. And also we're looking at trying to raise awareness of OCD as well among professionals and things like that. Most of the people there do not have autism. There is one other person, I think, who's autistic and who's also a psychologist, but she wasn't at the last meeting I attended. There are only a couple of meetings, they're rather sporadic and spread out through the year, but I enjoy taking part. It's led by a clinical psychologist and lecturer in psychology. Yeah, it's interesting also to look at how OCD differs between autistic and non-autistic people. I do sometimes feel that I'm a bit different in my presentation to some of the other people there because I'm also autistic. It's interesting that the psychologist there said that although the content of OCD differs, the process is the same. I'm not sure I entirely agree with that because I do feel that while it might apply to non-autistic people, and I'm not even sure it applies to all non-autistic people, to be fair, I actually do believe there are different types of OCD and that not all OCDs share the same process. I'm not sure I entirely agree with her there, and I should have actually said that I don't entirely disagree, but I didn't. But maybe next time I might say that, because I'm not sure I entirely disagree. I entirely agree, particularly when it comes to autism. I do feel there are differences, not just in content, but there can also be differences in process, and I feel there are different subtypes. So I feel the process behind my OCD is quite different to, say, some other types of OCD, because the process behind my OCD is very much to do with my autism, which I do feel differs to people who aren't autistic, and that's, yeah. So I thought I'd mention that. My Bibby doll, by the way, the reborn doll, has arrived. I can't show you her quite yet, she's still decontaminating, and also, I also find it quite hard to move things once I put something in place. I will try very hard at some point to show her to you. It just might take some time, so do bear with me. It involves some anxiety moving her, and also I do want to dress her in some newborn clothes, but I will really try at some point to show you her, because that is something I really want to do. So it's something I really want to do, it's just that it might take me a bit of time, so just bear with me on that one. But I am looking forward to showing her to camera very much. It just might take a bit of time. Currently she's just sitting in the sitting room, looking very cute, and I've called her Constance Ada. As I also mentioned in another video, I'm getting very into Sylvanian families. I'm waiting at the moment for a barge boat and a caravan ordered off eBay. I'm getting a little bit stressed because the caravan's a bit delayed. I was sent an email from the eBay person because the lockers weren't emptied and she's had to resend it, but she said it should arrive for the next couple of days, touch wood. Obviously it is the Easter weekend coming up, so there could be a bit of delay. If I haven't received it early next week, I'll have to email her again and just say, look, it hasn't arrived, can you chase it up? But it should be arriving soon. Hopefully it arrive tomorrow. If it hasn't arrived by Tuesday, I will email her though, just to find out what's going on. The other one I ordered, because I really don't want to have to order it again, because that is so annoying. But if I do, I do. The other one I've ordered, as I say, is the barge boat, and I ordered that this week, but that shouldn't arrive. That won't arrive till next week, because it does take them about a week anyway. So fingers crossed with that. Because as you know, I'm getting very into Sylvanians at the moment. It's another little interest that's kind of developing quite intensively. Oh yeah, and another interest, I get very obsessed with things, very obsessed. I go for these little micro obsessions. That's part of being autistic for me, a big part of being autistic, is that I go for these little micro obsessions, but they keep me sane. I do get very fixated and passionate about things. But something else, which is quite random, that I've come across recently, and it's called, It's a TikTok trend. Now, I do get quite interested in trends. I don't know why. Maybe it's just I quite like trends because they're kind of like little boxes that you can kind of put things in, and I like putting things in boxes, whatever boxes they be. Be they conceptual boxes where you put ideas in, or whether they be you know, real boxes, whatever box it is. I like putting things in boxes, so that might be part of it. But yeah, I do quite like following TikTok trends and just social media trends in general, where you have like a hashtag that I can like get on board with, particularly when that hashtag applies to me. It's quite amazing. I just love it. You know, like when I mentioned in a previous video about the cottagecore trends, that's an example of that. But lately I came across a TikTok trend. It's mainly among Generation Z, and obviously I'm a millennial, so I'm a little bit too old. Because Gen Z is obviously like, they're like in their late teens. Most of them are in their late teens and like very early 20s, and I'm obviously a millennial, so I'm like their generation up. They're sort of like my cousin's generation because he's like 19. But yeah, so most of them are like Gen Z. But it's so those who were like basically young children in the early 2000s, whereas I was a teenager in the early 2000s. I'm not too much older than them really. I mean, I'm only a good generation up. But yeah, it is mainly a Gen Z thing. But on TikTok, basically, they're talking about something called hashtag crunchy childhood. Now you might be thinking, what the hell is hashtag crunchy childhood? What does it mean? It basically means, it's also known as granola childhood, by the way. Hashtag crunchy childhood, hashtag granola childhood. It means the same thing. It basically means, it describes a type of childhood where your parents were very sort of like outdoorsy, nature loving, would often take you on very, very long walks, like in the countryside, often in places like Devon or Cornwall, like in rural England mainly, or that could be anywhere in the UK. That pretty much never took you abroad, so all your holidays were in the UK, either involving camping, caravanning, that sort of thing. We didn't go camping, I didn't go camping, but we did go caravanning. We stayed in static caravans. We didn't have our own caravan, we just stayed in like caravan parks. But it's a similar sort of vibe, and we did that as a kid. Like, basically my whole childhood was spent in places like Devon, Cornwall, Devon every year until I was 9, and I have very nostalgic memories of staying in Devon at caravan sites and like really, 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 really long walks, like hours long. I mean, for a small child, you know, most children wouldn't walk that far. It's quite unusual. We would literally walk for hours, even when I was like 5 or 6. Obviously, when I was very little, my parents would bring a pushchair, and part of it I was spending a pushchair, obviously, for little legs, can't walk for like ages. But I did walk more than your average kid, and really, really, really long walks over moors and cattle grids. Very, very nature-core. That's probably why I'm cottagecore now, into it, because it is very nostalgic, and I am very grateful for that. Obviously, when I was a kid, I did often complain about going on these really long walks. But actually, I'm very grateful for it because I do feel that it made me appreciate nature and kind of, yeah, just like having that childhood spent very much in the outdoors. I mean, it's funny now because now I'm like so much indoors, but that's not because of choice, that's just because of OCD and things. But as a child, I had an extremely outdoorsy childhood. I spent way more time outdoors than inside. We never were inside watching TV. We didn't have a TV until I was 10. We didn't really have any technology until I was 10. So it was really very much outdoors. You know, even when we went on holiday, I was outdoors playing on my bike and stuff like that, or playing in the garden. I was really outdoors. I was hardly ever inside, you know. I'm very grateful for that, you know. It was a good childhood. But yeah, it was interesting because I was reading about this crunchy child, and the crunchy bit, you're probably thinking, what does crunchy mean? Crunchy refers to nature bars. You know, like in the early 2000s, there were like those crunchy nature bars, or like granola bars. And the whole crunchy childhood thing is basically children who spent more time in nature, like basically had quite sort of natural childhood, like a lot of outdoor stuff, but also whose parents were quite health conscious and would kind of give them like foods like, not like chocolate or sweets and stuff, but kind of like healthy snacks, or kind of like more like natural foods and stuff. Like some of them might be vegetarian or vegan. My parents weren't vegetarian or vegan, by the way. I guess at its most extreme, your parent would be vegetarian or vegan, eh? And would often have things like granola, you know, that sort of thing. That's why it's called a crunchy childhood, because it kind of refers to the crunch of the sort of foods that were often eaten, particularly on long walks. My mum often ate apples, so I guess apples do count because they're like crunchy and healthy. we didn't have those granola bars growing up, so it wasn't like a hardcore granola childhood or anything, because we didn't have like granola and stuff. But we did have more in the way of like healthy stuff, I guess, because my mum was quite health conscious, and yeah, like lots of time outdoors, and and caravanning is also, as I say, part of the falls into that as well, and not having more in the way of outdoors experiences as opposed to like consumer goods or technology, and holidaying at home in the UK as opposed to abroad, not having Sky or Disney Channel or any of those kind of like commercial stuff. I guess you could say quite a wholesome childhood. Anyway, like as I was saying, when I read about it, because I sometimes like it when I get really excited when I find a hashtag or a trend that like I can relate to, or that's something that describes part of my experience. So when I came across this, I was like, whoa, my childhood was so crunchy core. Like, oh my god, it's actually a thing. And being dragged on like hour-long walks and stuff like that. It was very much part of my childhood. So. Let me know what you think. And also on TikTok, and as I say, it is mainly Gen Z, so I am a bit too old for it. And like, I don't know why Gen Z is. I think Gen Z is quite a nostalgic generation. I mean, they often say millennials are quite nostalgic. Well, to be fair, I think all generations are nostalgic, but obviously now with social media, like the younger generations, like I want to are kind of like what's the word? Kind of advertising and nostalgia. So I do feel, I think older generations are just as nostalgic. I mean, hell, baby boomers are extremely nostalgic. They often go on about, back in the day, back in the war, They're extremely nostalgic. It's just that they're not really on like the internet so much, so you don't hear about their nostalgia so much. So I think it's a bit unfair when they go on about like millennials being obsessed with the past. Millennials are no more obsessed with the past than any other generation. It's just that millennials and Gen Z are more likely to sort of like advertise their nostalgia. That's the only difference, because of having access to technology. That's the only difference. I'm very nostalgic by nature, but not in a reactionary way at all. I think nostalgia has potential to be good or bad. Like, it's only bad if you lose touch with reality and you literally think things were better in those days. They weren't better. I'm fully aware my childhood was better now, but that's just because as you get old, everything gets crap, and that's just a fact of life, unfortunately. But I mean, actually, the actual world itself wasn't better, if you see what I mean. It's just for, obviously, I mean, the 90s, no, we had the IRA, we had loads of bad stuff going on, which I was blithely unaware of being a kid. But yeah, obviously I think it doesn't matter when you grow up, but does it? You're going to have nostalgia. So nostalgia can be good, it just depends how it's used. But anyway, let me know what you think, and I very much look forward to hearing from you, so thank you for watching.